Rusev defeated Bobby Lashley in the tables match. And then you got the Kabuki Warriors defeated Becky Lynch and Charlotte for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. They gave the show overall a B+, so, and that's according to Forbes. But anyways, what do you think about the Rusev Bobby Lashley storyline? Where you have a black guy who basically took his girlfriend or whatever. What do you think of that whole thing?
Oh, you mean the whole Bendigo Warrior skit?
Yeah.
The big strong dark skin brother taking the white queen and all that stuff?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, when I heard about the death threat, I said before that I think it's all fake. I think it's just Vince McMahon just orchestrating a lot of buzz just to get any pub, to get anyone to listen to his storyline if he wants to show. But the bottom line is this: Vince McMahon is losing a lot of viewership.
Okay.
And they feel like, well, if we bring race and, because everyone, especially in this country, they're all emotional about race.
Of course.
Bring racial talking points, people can watch it, this and that, and it'll be edgy and stuff like that. But the reality is that's not going to bring any buzz to the show.
Well, one thing you got to understand is you can't bring the Attitude Era back because of the political correctness crap. But if they could do small angles like this, that sort of gives you a little bit of a feel to an Attitude Era, right? Because they had like storylines where, Lita was messing around with Edge when she was with Matt Hardy. But I heard that really was true, that really did happen. And then you had the one where, like, Hogan took Miss Elizabeth away from Macho Man, and then Macho Man did the same to Hogan. They had storylines where guys would feud back and forth and say, I took your girlfriend,
But the thing about, let's say, what you said right there, Macho Man Hulk Hogan, you are aware in real life that actually did occur, where Macho Man actually did accuse Hulk Hogan of sleeping with his wife.
I mean, it wouldn't cross my mind. Lex Luger everybody slept with Miss Elizabeth. I know she's passed away, rest in peace, but Lex Luger slept with her. Hogan slept with her. The Macho Man,
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, in real life, Macho Man was kind of paranoid over Miss Elizabeth. I think Viceland did a pretty good job documenting that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying to you that that's completely different with this, because it's kind of like everyone kind of knows it's not really real. It's fake. And that's the problem with wrestling overall. When you have an entire generation basically being told that it's all fake, all this stuff is not real, they're not really hitting on each other, no one's really hitting each other, it's all fake, say your prayers, wash your hands, wrestling is just fake, and that's what's being conditioned. They're trying to make it into I know some of the guys, he was bringing a black guy. I'm like thinking, no, wrestlers saying, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if almost all the female wrestlers were sitting around with the wrestlers guys.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't cross my mind either. It wouldn't cross my mind.
I mean, just really think about it. All the guys you meet are all pretty built. And if you're a wrestling guy, all the girls are all fit. I mean, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if everyone was sitting around with each other. I wouldn't.
I think Trish Stratus and Lita and all them chicks from even in the early 2000s, I think they were all sleeping around. Sable, all of them.
Really doing it? Is it real? It could be fake. It could be... But the reality is it's not even just that. It's just that the storyline of that really it was more of a soap opera than it was an actual, this is get in the ring and start fighting. It's just, no one's fighting anymore.
Yeah, but I think what WWE is doing is I think for the last 10 years, they really never were trying to have storylines. They were trying to make better matches and focus less on the soap opera of it. But I think they messed it up because I think the soap opera ultimately is what sells the fights. Like, you know, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg are not going to have a good match. So you actually have to sell a good storyline that suggests why they would have to fight. But you knew when they fought at WrestleMania, and you knew it was going to be a garbage match, and it was. It was like a 4-minute match where Goldberg basically spears Brock Lesnar like 10 times. And then Lesnar basically F5s him like 15 times, and that was basically it.
Well, again, this is the problem with this. Another thing I'm trying to tell you is this. I mean, it doesn't matter who wrestles who now, because when you condition the entire generation saying that wrestling's all fake, it's all a lie, I mean, what are you going to do with that? It doesn't matter the storylines. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They just screw the storylines, just say one or two things and go straight to a match. If you want to, anytime I see a WWE program or any wrestling programs, the first thing I want to see is, okay, everyone introduce themselves, and they ring a bell, and then, you know, there's two guys coming in and just fighting with each other or trying to engage in something. I mean.
Well, you kind of remind me of Bruce Blitz on YouTube, because he basically says, I don't care about the storylines, I want to see wrestling. That's like what he would always tell me. He would say on his channel. He's like, I don't care about the storylines, I want to see good technical wrestling.
But you know, again, those days are almost over because no one's doing that anymore. I mean, it's just I mean, the thing is, they're trying to make WWE and like these superstars, quote unquote, into like a movie or Hollywood.
Well, of course.
And it's like, you know, it's like, okay, you're a professionally wrestling program. Why don't you show wrestling? Like, what's all this shit? What's all this storylines? What's all of that? Because that's not working either. And apparently a lot of WWE fans and professional wrestling fans, they've been saying this, and they actually been said that all this cartoonish crap, I'm not watching it. In every single decade, this is true though, this is probably the lowest ever of wrestling fans you can think of. You know, people in history, this is the lowest ever.
Well, of course, but honestly, I also think that a lot of people need to keep in mind that it's impossible to get back to the Attitude Era, because you're actually going to need those wrestlers. Like, you think these wrestlers today are going to be able to have, I mean, other than maybe Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, let's say Braun Strowman, and Bray Wyatt, there's a couple of guys you could probably say, you know what, if they were in the Attitude Era, they would make it. But the rest of the locker room, like the 95% of those guys walking around, I would probably see them on one of my DZW shows that I go to.
Was actually scheduled to be partner with somebody else, and then she posted a couple of videos on her Twitter or Instagram, whatever, of her getting engaged with somebody else. Well, the storyline, she was like married, not married, but dating somebody else on a storyline. And WWE got pissed off. It's like no one seems to care. It's like, what's that girl, Sasha Banks? She's like, all like, you know, I guess turning heel or whatever. And then a week later, she's making a video with kids. And how to be a wrestler and how to be cute and all. And I'm thinking, okay, you're a heel, but why are you making a video about you know, with kids?
Yeah, I understand.
Doesn't make any sense. And it's like, and also when you're doing that, you're not making appealing to your core base, which is basically the teenage and early to mid 30s, which is basically the 18 to 35 demographic. That is like the key demographic you want to get into. They're not doing that because, in fact, it seems to me they're more concerned about irritating little kids, like 10-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and everyone knows this. You don't want to be saying this thing is cool, and a 10th grade, I mean not 10th grade, but a second grader saying that, because a 10th grader, like, shit, it's all a bunch of kid shit. See, I mean, that's what's happening. Because remember, we got a whole generation now, you have, like, literally 12, 13-year-old kids saying wrestling is fake, it's not real, who watches this crap, it's some fake crap. They're saying that.
But you know, when I was younger, they were saying that too, though.
Huh?
Like 10 years ago when I was younger, they were saying that too, though.
But that's see, that's what I'm saying. You're in that generation.
Yeah.
Remember, you're 23 years old.
22.
So you started watching around in the you started watching probably towards the end of the Attitude.
Yeah, I think, I started watching it like in 01, 02. I was real little,
yeah.
but yeah, I remember vaguely.
Yeah, so you grew up with that, you know, basically 2000 and 2010.
Yeah.
Where that was you saw, like, the first little kid saying, you know, why would you watch all this kid crap? But they're like 13, 14, while the rest of the world that was into professional wrestling, because at the time, professional wrestling was global.
Yeah.
Everyone watched professional wrestling, especially around, like, if you're a kid in the 90s, even around your age, like the early 2000s, they were watching all that stuff. But then that shift changed ever since the collapse of WCW. And then Vince McMahon took over. There was no real competition. I know there was TNA, but really, like, no one really cared. But it was really just WWE taking over. And since there was no competition, no, you know, whatever, they could just do whatever they want and stuff like that. But what happened was, when you basically told everybody saying it's all free, that's why I stopped watching wrestling at that time, because when I started, what killed it really was the internet, because when people were like, when you find results before even the...
Yeah, they were posting the dirt sheets and all that on no DQ. Yeah, I mean, I remember that too. That shit sucked, because you already knew who was going to fight who was going to beat who, and then it would happen at Mania, you know? My favorite pay-per-view of all time, me personally, I mean, and it's not to disrespect on the golden era or the early 90s, but I would have to say Armageddon 2000 is probably my most favorite pay-per-view of all time. 6-man Hell in the Cell, Kurt Angle, Rikishi, Undertaker, Kane, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, man, in those days, they really take it. I mean, those wrestlers, they're from the 80s. And they're from the territory days, where you have to, like, they actually have to go on the road and learn how to be a wrestler and promote yourself and everything like that. You know, that's a whole different generation. Wrestlers you see back in those are the early 2000s, late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Those people were basically the last batch that were trained under the territory days. Okay? But ever since Vince McMahon took over the territories and started just monopolizing the whole thing, make everything on TV and all that other stuff, that's why I explained earlier with you in our prior discussions that that's what most of people that are like our age started watching. So we were not like trying to train, because nowadays most wrestlers, they just remember what they were watching. What were they watching? The Attitude Era, WCW. And so a lot of those kids are now grown up. What are they doing? They're basically cosplaying the stuff they saw when they were kids, which is basically NWO. And
Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake Roberts. I see people dress up like that.
Hollywood Hogan. They were not, remember NWO, limousines and all that stuff, and there's like Stone Cold Steve Austin with the beer truck. I want to do something like that, you know. But what happened was a lot of these wrestlers, they really didn't identify or try to create their own character, but rather just mimic what they saw when they were a kid. So they didn't create their own stuff. You know, like...
Well, I mean, there are certain... But there are certain wrestlers that could have been lifted, like the Rybacks, when the Wyatt family first came out. Bo Dallas... I could name more and more and more. I would say probably I mean, there's other guys that I could name, but those are just a few. They had an opportunity to become a great wrestler, but they just got continuously buried. You know?
That's another problem that's going on with WWE. It's the same thing with Triple H. It's like, good Lord, man. Like, they send him all the time when they want to bury somebody. That's another thing that's going on with professional wrestling. I just don't understand. And if you know, and what's eating them alive right now is that, you know, you got talent that's good, but the old guy wants to keep his job and payment and get the spotlight, and it's just like, again, and now what's happening now is the talent that's supposed to be your core attraction is aging, and you don't have anyone of youth to kind of gain that attraction. This is what's going on with boxing. You know, after the Pacquiao and Mayweather saga, who is now attracting, you know, boxing fans to watch boxing, to what's going on with the UFC now. You know, after Conor McGregor left and Ronda Rousey, they're having trouble attracting fans now.
Well, Kamara said he wanted to knock him out.
Yeah. Okay, for a big example of this, I thought this Colby Covington
Yeah.
was a wrestler. He wrestled a couple of years at Impact.
Yeah.
He did MMA, but he also did professional wrestling. Took that gimmick of being the Trump supporter. Well, he's a Trump supporter, but took it and ran with it before the mediocre MMA fighter from signing with UFC. He was on the verge of even being released by UFC. Took the you know, pro wrestling stance and created his own little persona of being this Trump supporter. I think the Sons, one of the sons of Donald Trump followed him, tweeted him, etc. Got a big, you know, push. You know, then he went to the main event, and I knew that he wasn't the talented guy. I mean, look, listen, man. Usman, like, I saw that. Again, I'm not surprised because he's an okay fighter, but he's not great. He's a great talker, though. And
he still is 15-2 though. His record's 15-2 in UFC.
I know it is, but you got to look at his old body work. It's just not that great. But it's not because he's 15-2. But even that, when he's 15-2, why is it even a big push? It's because of the way he changed his act. He just started, you know, being the Trump supporter, you know, WWE style, and that's what he did. He took what happened in professional wrestling, power shot, and he lost. And which is not a surprise at all. I'm not surprised at all that Usman basically beat the shit out of him. But the thing with WWE is that it's basically a business that's dying. I mean, the professional wrestling industry is literally dying.
But with all due respect, though, I remember 10, 15 years ago they were talking about how wrestling was going to die or WWE was going to die, and somehow it's still around.
Well, remember, look what you said, 10, 15 years ago, that was what? 10, that's like
2010, like in 2010, I heard guys on YouTube, well, when I first coming on YouTube in 2011, 2012, and I was a type troll, they have wrestling video makers, and they were talking about, well, WWE, it'll probably be out of business by 2018 or 2019, and believe it or not, I mean, it's still around, you know?
Well, it's still around because of TV contracts. If you take away the TV contracts from WWE, they're not going to make that much money as they think they are.
Well, I know WWE has a problem selling out stadiums because
anything right now they have that is worth anything right now is their contract with the networks. That is the only thing they have. If it wasn't for that, then WWE would be in serious trouble.
Yeah, I know, because when they came to Houston, the last 3 times they came, I was told by the lady that works there that they had to bring in seat fillers, like basically people to fill in the seats to make it look like they sold out, when in fact they didn't. Like, they might only sold like half the tickets.
I'm not, like I said, that I'm not surprised by that. And you know what the problem is also They remember one thing also, cable is dying.
Yeah, you told me about that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, remember I told you about the ESPN, like why is Top Rank Boxing, why is UFC, they're pushing a lot of that because they are trying to use those sports or those promotion companies to push the idea of going to the app. Because down the road, ESPN does not want to be on cable anymore, they want to be on the app. They no longer want to be, go to channel, whatever, on ESPN.
Do you think it makes sense for them to go to the app as opposed to being on channel 33 or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible because everyone's jumping off the cable right now because everyone's saying, go to the app, go to the app. That's what's going on with ESPN. WWE, down the road. I know there's a 205 Live.
Yeah.
I know that stuff, but down the road, they're going to be just an app-only show.
Because like even my parents, they've been discussing about getting rid of the cable, and they were like, we don't even watch it anymore. So what's the point of having it? So they actually we have 4 cable boxes. They turned 2 of them off. So we only pay $75 a month for the cable. But now they're talking about just getting rid of it completely because they're like, who in this house will really watch this TV? No one. Everything we watch is on YouTube. I was telling you earlier in the discussion that even Xfinity, that's our cable provider. I go on Xfinity.com like I do Netflix, and I watch all my shows on there. Any shows I missed, I go on there and watch it.
Well, here's the thing about it. The thing about it now, it's not just a cable company. Everyone's going now to Roku TV or Fire Stick, whatever device you got, anyone who's hearing this.
Of course.
In your house. Everyone's going to that. No one's no longer going to cable anymore. Unless cable goes dramatically crazy, just go way, way cheap. Which I don't think they're going to do that. That's the only way they can come back, but I don't think they're going to come back ever. The cable networks, they're going to change dramatically. Everyone's going now to apps, so you can just download the app and just watch us there. As far as the current concern with WWE and its concerned industry and businesses, I know on Twitch you see a lot of different wrestling, like Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor's on there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know all that stuff. I know AEW is trying to go with Bleacher Report.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wait. So you're saying AEW is going with Bleacher Report? I didn't know that.
They stream with some pay-per-view events.
That's pretty cool.
And because Bleacher Report basically, and they're investing a lot of money with TNT and Turner Sports because they're looking to get rights into soccer because they got the Champions League. I know that CBS Sports CBS Sports got a new bid to get this contract for MLS soccer, and they're going to push heavy for the Europa League Championship and all that stuff. That's all. I'm just going by example, but what they want, CBS, they want to build a conglomerate network similar to NBC Universal, and they want to be their own little app themselves. But this is all down the road. This is not right now. It's just down the road.
So we're looking at, 5-10 years from now?
5 years they won't be off of cable.
Okay.
They're planning right away to get into their own little apps.
So now we're in part 2 of this video, and Kim, what wrestling fans should do is I don't know if based on the area you live, I think you live in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and all that. I was told, even my uncle told me this, who's in DZW, he's in what you would consider an indie wrestling, local wrestling. And we got, UPW, DZW, and all these other companies. He told me that wrestling fans really need to start appreciating the smaller companies, the local companies, and that we should consider supporting those smaller venues instead of just looking at WWE. Now, I know WWE spends a lot of advertisement costs, so they still sort of monopolize the wrestling business, but if we really want to get in tune with wrestling and have a variety instead of just tuning into one, and maybe forcing the WWE to push out better storylines, the only way you would do that is you have to support the other companies like AEW, ROH, TNA Impact, or what they call Impact Wrestling. There's not enough people supporting those companies,
I'll say you right. I'll be honest with you. I think that's already happening right now. A lot of wrestling fans have left WWE. They're going somewhere else, and I think now there's a big push for other shows. Look at, for example, AEW. There's a big chunk of the audience that went straight to AEW.
Yep. Yep.
There's also a lot of people that said, I'm tired of this, this kid show. I'm gonna go watch, wrestling where the promotions are there. Like, say, for example, in Texas, you have Circus Wrestling that's based out of Austin.
Yeah.
So that's also on Twitch. You got, for example, in Queens, you got Hog Wrestling, the Bronx Federation, the Bronx Federation, all that stuff. You got these other promotions that are going into effect also. OVW. There's a lot of options now than before. Or wrestling in Hollywood or something like that in California. There's a lot now, plus the avenue of social media, so you can watch all types of wrestling events. And I think now a lot of them are now going to those places. I've been to even nightclubs where they will host a wrestling event and be like, 400 people be packed and everyone will be looking at it and all that stuff. But it's just like I said. That's all because it's not like, oh yeah, but you're getting older, that's your... Listen, look, man, back in the 90s, man, you got people in their late 30s watching professional wrestling. But no one who, you had 23-year-olds saying, let's go buy a pay-per-view event, which Halloween Havoc in 98 or something. People were at that age where even college kids, how many college kids are saying, let's watch a WWE event? No one's doing that because they'll think, oh, that's kid shit.
Well, now people are improvising. Like, for over here in Houston, we get together and we go meet at restaurants that actually host the event. They actually, like, they buy the cable and then they buy the pay-per-view and then everybody goes and you support the bar. So people start doing that now.
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, like, I watch MLW.
Never heard of that company.
I watch the other ones too. I watch a lot of the other stuff, but when you watch the other stuff, you can tell, like, WWE became very corporatized.
Of course.
Because if you look at some of the smaller shows, they get really into it. I mean, I know that, what's her name, Gail Kim talked about, we should just support Impact Wrestling and, the WWE, but something, Gail Kim's kind of right, because I watched a little bit, even though it's smaller, it's not what it used to be because the way TNN screwed it with Dixie Carter, but the show itself and the wrestling is just, I mean, there's a little bit more oomph to it than it is WWE. It just seems that everything just takes everything longer, just the walks are longer. The show's just too long. The promos are too long.
But you gotta admit, though, like, now that we're getting older, you kind of see wrestling for what it really is, But you
see, here's the thing about that. Even when you're older right now, you can go type in 1991 WWF wrestling, and even when you look at it right now, you can tell back then that shit was more entertaining than the shit you see now.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, hell, you could type in 2000 WrestleMania Fatal 4-Way match, Mick Foley, Big Show, Triple H, and what was it, The Rock? I mean, that was a really good that was a really good main event. That was the first time they ever had a Fatal 4-Way match. That was actually, I mean, like, I'm not telling you, I'm not denying that if you don't watch those previous shows, you're not going to get to the show. I'm just saying now that we're older and we look at these other guys coming up and you're just like, those aren't the guys that I grew up watching. Like John Cena ruined my childhood. That motherfucker ruined my childhood. I had a bad childhood watching him.
Well, Well, the thing is, man, remember the wrestlers that just came up out of nowhere, they're really just crap. You've got a generation of talent, of wrestling talent, that really is horrible.
Well, the only ones that are still good is Bobby Lashley, Rusev. I'm not saying that they're not exciting to watch, because they are. Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns is okay. I mean, as long as they're not shoving him down our throat.
Roman Reigns. Look, the reason why Bobby Lashley still is, the guy is built. He's really built for his part. But remember, he's also an MMA fighter.
Yeah, of course.
That's why also, like, you know, that's what I'm trying to tell you, man. That, I said before, that's the new generation, the hybrids, the MMA fighter, you know, slash wrestler, they are going to be the ones being pushed forward. Look at Ronda Rousey showing up. And, you know, I told people, the women's division was garbage until Ronda Rousey showed up. Look at Cain Velasquez got pushed to be in one of the main events. And, you know, like, I'm just telling you.
Well, to be fair, when some of the wrestlers back in 2015, 2014 were going to UFC, that actually did make it exciting. When you had Brock Lesnar fighting in the UFC and you had Bobby Lashley going over there, you had Ken Shamrock going over there way before that, of course. You had some guys that crossed over to MMA that actually kind of made it exciting, too.
And if like I said, go over there, not only just be there, but also win. That actually pushes their career. Look at what the guy, Jack Swagger, the caricature that he did. He went to Bellator. He's winning matches there, and that boosts up his profile up. You know, that's why he's one of the main stars in AEW.
Yeah.
And like you said, you talked about earlier about with your uncle, how you know you have those guys in the locker room, and all of a sudden some MMA professional fighter came in, and he just got the main event push.
Yeah. That my uncle had to wrestle against one, and he had to put the guy over, which he understood. He's not that type of dude, because my uncle doesn't have an ego. He just said, okay, I'll put the guy over, no problem. Like, yeah, you got to put him over, because you got to have him look good going into where he's going to next. So, which makes sense, you know?
But like I said, are you a real fighter? Have you really fought? You know, do you have an MMA background? And if the ones who are coming with an MMA background, they're going to be pushed over than the ones who actually went to professional schools. That's the thing about it now. Like, that right now, not so much, but really within the coming 4 or 5 years, they're going to require almost all the wrestlers are going to ask them to give an MMA background. If you have an MMA background, we're going to push you forward. We're going to put you ahead of the guys that don't have no background.
Well, that's because you look more treacherous and look more dangerous, because you've actually had real life fights.
Yeah, that's exactly. So that's why WWE. That's why, for example, New Japan Wrestling. It's not surprised that half of their roster are actually professional fighters. Like, come on, like they were pretty out of like Fight One, Risen, and the promotion company over there. They're trying to get people from Bellator to go. They used to fight at Bellator. An example, what's going on with NWA Power. The main girl that is in NWA Power from the road, that she's actually fighting in Bellator. I mean, not Bellator. I forgot what it was called. The other, not Bellator. The other MMA promotion company, but she's in MMA. I do know that there was another guy that just crossed over from MMA to professional wrestling. He did some matches. He got pushed over. But like I said, if you're going to be in the wrestling business, you got to do MMA.
But see, here's the thing, though. 20 years ago during the Attitude Era, well, 25 years ago during the Attitude Era, like, UFC or MMA guys would never have thought to go to wrestling, because they would actually be considered laughed at, because they're like, you're going to go to that fake shit? Now it seems like it's a cool thing to do.
It was reversed. Remember, it was reversed, because remember, during those times, the WWF was, and the WCW were making money. Okay? UFC was not making any of those underground, people couldn't it was hard to get a show because they were not sanctioned and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as the 2000 hit and it moved up, you know, it also Pride fighting in Japan, that boosted up the profile of MMA scene. What happened was when that occurred, that is also when, oh shit, look, this is actual fighting. And what happened? You had a whole generation that basically been told this wrestling shit is all fake, everything's fake, it's not real, it's all an act. And then all of a sudden you see this new rise of UFC, MMA, and all that stuff coming in, saying this is the real shit. What happened? You got all that youth that was supposed to be falling for wrestling, they all jump into UFC. That's what happened.
Damn. So, what do you think it's going to take to... I don't know if even wrestling... I know you talked about how MMA fighters should come to WWE, so that way that's going to be the new hybrids. And I guess I can sort of see your point of view on that, because that does make a lot of sense. But I think it's still going to take a lot more than that to bring ratings back up. Do you think that people should start supporting the indie shows?
They already have. It's going to get... It's already have. There's... a lot of indie shows are getting a lot of those. I mean, I met a couple of guys that watch indie shows where I'm at. They'll tell you straight up that, oh yeah, I used to watch WWE, but not anymore. I don't watch that crap. Like, I'd rather just watch this. It costs like $10 to get in here. Just like, you know, watch a good show. You know, and the thing is now, again, man, it's like I gone to wrestling shows. Boxing, I've gone to MMA events where I'm at. You know, I'm a big combat sports guy. You know, as far as professional wrestling is concerned, I don't think it will never come back because, again, this is what happened with Vince McMahon. This all happened in the courtroom back in the early 90s when he basically told everybody this shit is fake. It's fake. It's all sports entertainment, and you know, it's not really wrestling. They're saying that shit just to get save some money from the tax man. Ever since then, he just went downhill.
Yeah, but I mean, people were gonna find out it was fake anyway.
Well, I will put it this way: the wrestling, especially back in the 80s, man, that shit was tough.
Yeah, I know, but you don't think in 2019 people wouldn't figure out right now that wrestling is fake, even if Vince McMahon never said that? Like, sooner or later, people would know. Like, okay, you have so much technology and camera devices, you see these motherfuckers hanging out and shit, and they just were beefing in the arena an hour before that. So you're like, wait a minute, I thought you got, oh, okay, so this ain't real.
Like I said, man, back in the day, the shit was real. It was real. Like, you go into a match, you actually had fights. Like, people actually had fights. It's just not that
But
anymore.
you do realize that even though we talk about how bad the ratings are, usually around the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania season, usually they pick back up because the Rumble match is something everybody likes to watch. Like, I know people today that stop watching wrestling, but they watch Survivor Series, they watch well, they got rid of Elimination Chamber. They watch Survivor Series, Mania, and the Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. What they call the Big Four. The Royal Rumble is this year in Houston, and like people have been asking me, like, hey, are you gonna go? I'm like, man, I've been thinking about it, because I went to the Rumble in 2017, and that was when Randy Orton won. I don't know if you remember that Rumble, but Orton won the match. The crowd was okay. It was a good show, but
So what happened was when all the kids started saying, wait a minute, so we already know who's going to win before, so what's so far watching the whole thing? And that's when everything fell apart. And that's when they started losing that big chunk. And then after that, that's when Vince McMahon became kind of soft, and they just dilute the product to be...
So you mean to tell me you didn't even watch... So wait a minute. So you mean to tell me you didn't watch the Mania where Eddie Guerrero won the heavyweight title and Chris Benoit won it on the same night?
No. It was because everyone knew it's not legit. It's all just a joke. Everyone knew that.
Yeah, I know, but that was still a historical moment, though, because Benoit made Triple H tap at Mania.
Okay, I'll put it this way. Anything that was magical was before it was... Okay, anything... Okay, you gotta understand, the magical part was when people look at the mid-90s and the whole NWO and WWF, the WCW, the Monday Night Wars. That was the peak.
Of course.
Professional wrestling.
Of course.
But anything beyond that, no one cares.
Okay, but the facts are, you still have, like I said, that Mania when Benoit and Eddie won was memorable because both of them never held heavyweight championships. And then Rey Mysterio winning the Rumble in 2006 was actually pretty good, too.
I understand that, but it's no comparison to what was going on in the 90s.
Well, of course. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Once around 05 and 06 hit, you could tell wrestling was solely on the decline.
Okay, but before we say anything, I know you're 23, right?
Well, I will be 23 in June.
Okay, I know that. Remember one thing. You came from a different time.
Okay. But I still watch.
Okay.
I still watch the wrestling from back then all the way up till now.
I know that, but you're looking at it in perspective. You started watching everything after.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
After go through the process of watching the programs that we're watching in the mid-90s.
Okay, fair enough. And I will say that the mid-90s, the Monday Night Wars in the mid-90s between WCW, ECW, and WWF were 10 times better than what I went through.
Yeah. So when for example,
I just got done watching the '96 King of the Ring, the one Mr. Ass won. I just got done watching that the other day. Yeah, I watch a lot of the old pay-per-views.
I know that, but when you're like, okay, how about this? When around the world, this was a global thing.
Okay.
When you have kids that are like in Africa,
okay,
watching late night wrestling, somewhere in Africa. You had Asian countries that were like having, they had like events for WWF WrestleMania that's on a screen outside the park.
Yes.
In Mexico, there's something similar like that. They'll have a screen outside. You're not seeing, but see, that was in the to late 90s. Was the internet. There's one thing I got to admit about Vince Russo. People think that, he says that people think that I kill the wrestling industry. No. What really killed it was the internet. When people found out that the people were getting links to leaks to the public, who was winning, who was losing. This was all,
Okay, but then let me ask you this: how do you stop? Okay, but then how do you stop that? There's nothing you can do to stop that stuff, though.
That's why Vince Russo said, well, just come out and be honest. It's all fake. Just say it's all fake, and that way we go with it. That was the whole argument.
Okay, but telling it it's fake isn't going to change the ratings.
Well, it did change the ratings because ever since then, it's been dropping. The ratings back from those times to now, if you look at the numbers, it's been dropping every year. The demographic of professional wrestling fans has been dropping every year.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I'm saying as long as the dirt sheet still exists, how are you going to have a good product?
Well, the thing is that at that time it was out of control because people just keep releasing new information. Not right now. Right now, the dirt sheet's all protected. No one's doing that anymore. It's very hard to find dirt sheets. So they're not doing that anymore. It's very secretive. But back then, they didn't say, oh, it's the internet. Well, that doesn't mean anything. But they underestimated Google at the time. Everyone's going on the internet and everything.
I mean,
and at the time, Vince Russo was going around saying, hey, there's a thing called the internet going on, and there'll be that one kid who's going to be reading that article, and he's going to tell the other kid what's going on, and before you know it, it's out there before we got to control it, and that's what was the thing he was presenting, and that's what happened in the early 2000s, and that's when everyone started saying, we're so poor on watching wrestling, we know it's all fake, and look, we got these results over before he even started. So it's no point watching a freaking pay-per-view.
Yeah, but you know that WWE, what they do now is they start changing the scripts whenever the dirt sheets come out.
But it's too late now. It's too late because you got Vince McMahon promoting this shit saying it's not really real.
Okay, but what do you want them to do? We all know it's a fake product. We all know that.
I mean, there's nothing they can do. They shot themselves in the foot. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
But if the internet killed it, then how is that their fault?
It's not their fault, but the fault is that they should have controlled it. They didn't do it at that time. That's what happened. I remember exactly. People were saying, well, look, they're going to win. This guy's going to win. This guy's going to win. And what's so for getting the pay-per-view? I
agree with that. Especially when it costs $50-$60. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, at the time it was like 30. Was it? I think it was $40.
Yeah, 40. $39.99.
No. $40, 30. I think it was here in the U.S. I know that other countries was a different price. Some was for free. I know in Brazil it was for free.
Well, in here you had to pay. You had to pay in the United States.
I mean, a couple of my friends told me that they watched it in Brazil for free. I know Colombia. I know there was a watch shows in Mexico. But that is gone. Like, no one's doing that. That is all gone. Like, that is just, it is not going to recover. Everything you see right now, professional wrestling, is not going to be the same anymore. It's just, you just can't change it anymore.
Well, that's why I say, my suggestion is, and that's what my uncle said, Kim, is that we need to start supporting the smaller indie shows.
But remember one thing, though. Here's another thing, too. What I also noticed is this. A lot of the indie shows, I could just tell you an example, they really don't, and this is something I kind of noticed, they don't do a good job trying to figure out where they are sometimes.
Well, I know that, of course, because you got a bunch of no-name guys in the business.
The only thing I can think of right now that can save this industry is bringing these hybrid MMA fighters in. And as far as these wrestling schools are, they gotta change themselves because they need to bring in more MMA fighters.